Today I'm going to talk to you about how to do some basic modeling with your objects in Blender. I'm going to cover how to do extrusions on your object. I'm going to cover how to do subdivisions and the loop cut tool. To do this, I'm going to switch over to the modeling workspace. Now when I switch over to the modeling workspace, it automatically puts me into edit mode for the last object that was selected. So if I have two cubes here, for instance, if I add a new cube and switch over to modeling mode, which then drops me into edit mode, I'm in edit mode for this cube. That means I can only edit this cube. You can only edit one object at a time. So I'm unable to edit this object over here. If I end up in edit mode for the wrong object, I can tab out of edit mode to go back to object mode, select a different object using my select tool, and then tab back into my edit mode so that I'm editing the correct object. Let's get rid of this extra cube here. Okay, so the first tool I want to talk about here is the Extrude Region. It's over here on the left. The shortcut for that is the E key. And there's a few different things we can do with Extrude Region. If I have a vertex selected and press E, this allows me to extrude or pull on that vertex to create a new vertex. Now, it may not be immediately obvious what the benefit of that is, so I'm going to switch over to Edge Select and select an edge and show you what that looks like when I extract an edge. So when I extract an edge, you'll see it creates a new face attached to that object. And now you can begin to see how we could possibly use this to, or how we could use this to create new, more complex objects. We can also do this with face select. I can select the face of an object and press the E key to extrude that face and pull on that and extend my object. You can combine shortcuts here. If I have edge select here and press E, I can lock my extrusion to the x-axis or the z-axis. I can also press the number key here. So if I press Z and 3, it's going to extrude that face 3 meters along the z-axis. I can left click to confirm the change. If I right click, it cancels the change. So if I press E and right click, it cancels the change and goes back to the way it was before I started extruding. The other thing I will note, if you're extruding a point or a face, you can extrude along multiple axes at the same time. So in this case, I'm extruding along the, you can see up here in the top left-hand corner, oops, I clicked on my screen, along all 3 axes at the same time, the X, Y, and Z axis. You may not be able to see what that looks like until I rotate around, but you can see it's kind of over to the side, it's up, and it's a little backwards behind the face. If I'm extruding along a face, if I have a face selected and press extrude, the E shortcut, I can only extrude along the axis that is normal to that face. That is the axis that goes through the middle of that face. So when I have my default cube, that is the actual z-axis of my workspace. But if I rotate this cube around, I don't want to rotate the face. Let me get out, go to object mode. Let's rotate this. Now I'll tab back into edit mode, select my face and press extrude. You'll see it creates a new blue line for an axis that's normal to that face, and my extrusion comes straight out of that face. Undo, go back to my default cube. The next tool I want to talk about, I'm going to tab back into edit mode, is Subdivide. If I right click on a face, that brings up the face context menu, and I can select this option, Subdivide. And by default, this divides my face into 4 subdivisions, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down here in the left, we have the Subdivide menu, which gives us a few options for modifying our subdivision. I can increase the number of cuts. Down below, we have some randomness factors. So if I increase the fractal parameter, you'll see that the vertices kind of jump around a little bit. And this is a way you can add roughness to your object or maybe create a terrain. I'm going to undo that, go back to my default cube. But what I will do is I'll right click, subdivide. Let's reset my fractal. And let's do 4 times. And now that I have these subdivisions, I can actually extrude these faces individually. I can start to create some more complex objects. I can extrude this new face that I've created. I can extrude this face. I can select this face and subdivide it. I can extrude this face, so on and so forth. Let's undo a little bit here. With my selection tool, I can actually select multiple faces at the same time. So if I shift click and select these 4 corners, for instance, I can extrude all 4 corners at the same time. I can also subdivide these further. And then I can select multiple subdivisions again, multiple faces again, by shift clicking these faces. And I can extrude these all at the same time. And this is a way that I can create uniform extrusions on my object. So maybe I'm building a castle here. I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to select my cube. I'm going to go object mode and just delete this. One thing you need to be careful of with the subdivisions, though, is you have to keep an eye on your memory and your triangle count. Right now, my memory is at 18 megabytes. That's pretty low for a file. I should be good. You want to keep your memory limit for each object to about 100 megabytes. If you go over that, and the way you go over that is by creating additional polygons, your file is going to start to lag. So if you start to get up into gigabytes, your file is like 6 gigabytes large, you're going to start to see some lag, and you'll need to think about ways that you can manage your polygon count on your objects. So if I go back into edit mode, tab into edit mode, select this face, and click subdivide, and drag this up to 10 subdivisions. You'll see I'm already up to 292 triangles. If I do that on every single side, 512 triangles, and subdivide this side, 1052 triangles. You can see that starts to grow pretty quickly. I'm up to 18 megabytes, so it's not huge, but still, it's something to keep in mind as you're making these subdivisions. Undo that, go back to my basic cube. The other tool I want to talk about is the loop cut tool. Now, when I select the loop cut tool and mouse over an object that I'm editing, you'll see a highlight of where the cut is going to be made. If I click and hold, I can actually drag this cut along the object, and I can place my cuts very specifically. If I just want to cut the edges of my object, I can do multiple loop cuts. I could cut across cuts that I've already made, and then all of these new faces that I've created. I can go to face select and select faces. I can extrude as I was doing before. Now with the loop cut tool, there's also the menu that pops up when you first make a loop cut where you can change the number of cuts. So I can make 4 loop cuts along my object at the same time. The difference between subdivide and loop cut, well, there's a couple differences, is with loop cut I can click and drag and place my cut just so. And then the loop cut also cuts along all sides of your object. It goes around the whole object, whereas subdivide only cuts along a single face of your object. So if I select this and click subdivide, you'll see that it only subdivides this face, whereas the loop cut went all along my object. Let's delete this object. I'm going to add a cone. So I've added my cone in here. I'm going to turn on scene statistics. You'll see that I'm at 62 triangles right now. I'm going to tab back into edit mode and show you that we can make a loop cut. We should be able to make a loop cut. I think I was mistaken. Okay. I thought we would be able to loop cut along this cone. I thought I remember seeing that in a video I watched, but maybe I'm incorrect. Alright, so forget that. At any rate, let's delete this cone and go back to the cube. We've covered in edit mode, we've covered extrusions, the shortcut for that is E. We've covered how to make subdivisions by selecting faces. You can actually select multiple faces and subdivide all faces at the same time. And we've covered how to make loop cuts. Thanks for watching and happy blending.